If Iran really reached the bunker under Israel's military headquarters, then this war just crossed a line both governments hoped would stay invisible. Not a barracks, not a warehouse. The buried command core in central Tel Aviv, the place designed to keep functioning if the city above it is burning, dark, and cut off. Iran says it hit that zone. Israel shut the area down, pushed cameras back, and said almost nothing. And that silence is the story, because the question is no longer whether missiles can reach Tel Aviv. We already know they can. The real question is whether they are getting close enough to threaten the hidden systems that keep Israel's war machine connected when everything else fails. Under the Kiryat military complex, Israel has spent decades building protected command infrastructure. Public discussion often treats the headquarters as a normal urban military site with some reinforced shelters below it. That is far too simple. Reports over the years point to multiple underground layers. One of them is often identified as Site 81, an intelligence and communications center deep beneath central Tel Aviv, built to survive electronic warfare and continue operating under extreme conditions. It was reportedly developed with American funding and engineering support and designed with heavy electromagnetic shielding so a strike, blackout, or electronic attack above ground would not sever command links. Then there is the deeper wartime command post, sometimes described as the Fortress of Zion, a hardened subterranean nerve center beneath the same district. Journalists who were allowed limited access in the past described a multi-level operations room, wall-sized screens, live strike tracking, and constant staffing during active conflict. In a major war, this is where senior decision-making continues after the surface becomes unreliable. That is why this claim matters. Iran's Revolutionary Guard has not been vague about its target list. It has publicly named Israeli and American sites, including Ben Gurion Airport and dozens of U.S. bases across the region. But central Tel Aviv matters more than a symbolic hit. If you can disrupt buried command infrastructure, you are not just landing missiles, you are testing whether the other side can still coordinate air defense, intelligence fusion, retaliation, and political control under pressure. And there is a reason the latest claim cannot be dismissed as pure propaganda. This exact part of Tel Aviv has already been hit before. During the June 2025 war, Iranian ballistic missiles struck the Da Vinci complex near the Kiryat. The impact area was rapidly sealed off. Cameras were kept away. Later reporting placed the strike only a very short distance from the Prime Minister's office. Afterward, that office underwent renovations and officials never gave a clear public accounting of what was damaged. To this day, satellite imagery and map coverage around parts of that area remain unusually restricted. Some outlets later suggested reporting on that strike was delayed. That does not prove Iran penetrated the bunker, but it does establish a pattern: hit, blackout, limited imagery, minimal official comment. Now it has happened again. In the middle of a much larger barrage, over roughly 10 days, Iran has launched more than 500 missiles and over 2,000 drones, according to Iranian-linked reporting. The pace changed after the opening volleys. The early salvos were large. Later attacks came in smaller waves but with heavier and more destructive weapons. That shift matters because missile defense is not only about volume. It is also about what gets through and what each surviving warhead can do. One strike in Beit Shemesh made that brutally clear. A missile with a warhead of roughly 500 kilograms hit with enough force to collapse an underground civilian shelter. 9 people were killed. Investigators concluded that even a properly compliant shelter would likely not have survived a direct hit of that magnitude. An interceptor was launched, it engaged, it simply missed. That detail cuts through a lot of political messaging. Israel and the United States say their operations have sharply reduced the scale of incoming Iranian fire by targeting launchers and support infrastructure. Even if that is true, reduced volume is not the same as restored safety. A smaller number of successful penetrations can still produce strategic effects if the missiles are heavier, more accurate, or better suited to saturate defended urban zones. One of the most serious examples is Iran's Khor-Am Shar-4, also known as Khyber in some reporting, a long-range ballistic missile with a range of about 2,000 kilometers and a very large payload. In one reported cluster configuration, the warhead can disperse roughly 20 submunitions from high altitude across a broad impact area that changes the equation completely. A conventional missile aimed at a buried bunker usually needs an almost perfect strike path or massive penetrating force to matter. A cluster warhead creates a different kind of danger. A conventional missile aimed at a buried bunker usually needs an almost perfect strike path or massive penetrating force to matter. A cluster warhead creates a different kind of danger. You do not need to collapse the bunker to degrade it. You only need to damage the systems that let it breathe, communicate, and stay reachable. So when cluster munitions fall inside the footprint of the Kiryat district, the issue is not whether the bunker was destroyed. The issue is whether the support architecture was stressed, damaged, or exposed. And here is the uncomfortable part. Both sides are trying to do exactly this to each other. Israel has already carried out the openly acknowledged version of the same operation against Iran. On March 6, Israeli aircraft struck an underground bunker beneath the leadership compound in central Tehran. According to Israel, around 50 fighter jets dropped roughly 100 bombs on a buried command site used by senior Iranian officials. Israeli intelligence units had reportedly spent years mapping the layout before the strike. The message was explicit: underground does not mean untouchable. Iran has released no comparable proof. For its claim in Tel Aviv, no confirmed footage of a penetration, no published battle damage assessment, no independent access that matters. But blackout cuts both ways. When streets are sealed, cameras blocked, and imagery restricted, absence of public evidence stops being reassuring. It becomes part of the uncertainty, and the war surrounding that uncertainty is widening fast. Oil prices have surged past $115 a barrel as shipping through the Strait of Hormuz has been disrupted and Gulf energy infrastructure has taken damage. More than 1,300 Iranian civilians are reported dead, including nearly 200 children. 7 American service members have been killed across the region. Washington says it may need weeks to achieve its objectives. Hezbollah has opened another front from Lebanon. Iraqi armed groups have joined with drone and missile attacks. And after the death of Iran's supreme leader, the regime moved quickly to install his son, Mojtaba Khamenei, as successor, placing wartime authority in the hands of a figure with no record of public elected office and no formal military command history. That may be the most consequential and known of all. A missile campaign of this scale is not sustained by rhetoric. It requires targeting discipline, logistics, launch coordination, stockpile management, and political control under bombardment. If Tehran can still maintain that system, the pressure on Israel's defenses continues. If it cannot, the campaign degrades. Right now, every military planner watching this war is trying to answer that question. But beneath all of it's the same hidden contest. Not just who can strike cities, but who can blind the other side's buried brain. That is why the sealed streets in Tel Aviv matter. That is why the blurred maps matter. That is why the bunker matters. Because once a war reaches underground command centers, it is no longer about symbolic retaliation. It is about whether the state can still function after the next hit, and if that doubt has entered the bunker beneath central Tel Aviv, then the most dangerous damage in this war may be the damage no one is allowed to see.